In the last video, we talked about the importance of giving direction to your chain of needs so that your potential can unfold into the creation of a meaningful experience. That was the first step toward an initial expansion, but beyond that, we also need to prepare ourselves for something else, the assaults that come from the outside world and its aggressive form of utilitarianism. That's why today I'm going to explain how to escape the decaying masses, a force that acts relentlessly against free spirits and against everything truly interesting in this world. I understand that most of you are still not used to the way I define certain social movements, and that's why I will make an effort to describe them in more detail this time. I also know that many expect me to make lighter, more casual videos, but that would take far too long. So think of this format as coming from someone who values your time more than you do yourselves. That said, what exactly is the culture of declining mass? If you watch my video titled The Exhaustion of Modern Society, released about 11 months ago, you've probably realized that both social and economic exhaustion have already taken place, to the point where modern society now faces secondary markets, a decline in industrial product quality, adulterated beverages, and prices detached from reality. All of this confusion is precisely the symptom of modern society's exhaustion. And if you've also seen the video, The End of Liberalism, you already know that the liberal model has burned itself out. And together, these two collapses rise to what I call the mass of decline, whose way of operating is rooted in what I name the will to decline, which I'll explain later. So when resources run dry, for example, when land becomes infertile, people naturally move elsewhere. That used to be common sense. Likewise, the most logical response to social exhaustion would be to seek new modes of production, new lifestyles, or perhaps a rethinking of trade and political structures. Yet, clearly, that's not what's happening. Instead, a new type of man has emerged, the aspiring managerial type, someone who rather than creating new means merely doubles down on his effort within the modern treadmill, becoming ever more compliant. This submission allows the state and the corporations to do whatever they please. Such behavior has all but annihilated the social power that once resisted both the state and the great monopolies. These aspiring utilitarians, driven by their mechanistic and robotic ideology, were quickly absorbed by political movements that through social engineering proved far more persuasive than the managerial class itself. From this symbiosis between the mechanistics of utilitarian effort and the political movement in general, the culture of the declining mass was born. It is truly a mass in decline, a collective whose sole purpose is to sink to the lowest level of utilitarianism, scraping marginal gains from managerial units of production, thus creating a system that funds this new managerial class. But this new class is not an expanding elite. They are frauds and charlatans, people of the lowest cognitive ability who somehow hold decision-making power. And with no cognition, none of their decisions have ever led to genuine social improvement. They are utterly unfit for the task. They manage to parasitize only because they rely on pre-made formulas of maximum utility. And since their thinking is purely mechanistic, they excel only at performing that only task. At the base of this new class lie the most dangerous types, men and women who combine low intelligence with the reactive disposition of the compliant slave. They are violent and irrational, and they are the ones most often placed at the front lines, preventing your experience from ever becoming better. These are the people constantly demanding new laws, new agreements, new trends, all of the lowest kind, to ensure that their will to decline becomes a social reality. That's why when one seeks a higher condition, one must first abandon the practices of this mass. After all, how can you criticize them if you think the same way they do? It would be redundant, wouldn't it? And the truth is, they are primitive versions of mercenaries, acting merely to secure marginal gains through pettiness and the lowest kind of production. They are the ones typically used by higher classes as the declining mass itself. Those marginal gains arise precisely from the general descent of the greater masses. Once industry stagnated and capitalism became more corporatist and extractive than ever, the greater mass lost its original function. But since even spoiled goods are never wasted, the state and the corporations decided to extract whatever remained from this mass, shaping a model of aggressive parasitism. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that the state itself is encouraging agents to lower product quality. After all, that's a common thing in socialist governments, a way of numbing the masses, feeding them just enough to extract a bit more in taxes, wages, and marginal gains. To escape this great declining mass, we must first stop operating according to its assumptions and abandon its spirit, abandon both its first and second purpose. And my goal in doing this is far more noble than it might seem. It is simply to promote a better experience through what I call my philosophy of egoist experience. But for that to happen, we must clear the path and reject the spread of the declining mass, its way of thinking, its tendency to destroy what is higher and replace it with the most basic. All of that must be avoided if you will wish to reach the best parts of experience. And by this, I don't mean you should stop watching football or stop drinking beer or even stop playing video games. On the contrary, the process is much more organic and intellectual than practical. You won't solve this overnight simply by quitting one habit and starting another. It's a long, intuitive, and exhaustion process. But at first, you only need to learn how to think in multiple ways, to expand beyond the lowest level, to walk more firmly on your own legs, to create different means, to give style to your direction, to cultivate your own experience. That is what will cure the smoky intoxication of the lowest level, the shallow thinking, the negative progression of things, the downward slope of the great amorphous mass. And with this, we've established what the declining mass is and how to avoid becoming a part of it. Remember, I'm not telling you to quit your modern job. This is more about mindset and expansion, an inner work of growth meant for one person alone. And with that, I'll take my leave and I'll see you in the next video.